So please welcome Daniel Scranton to the show. Welcome, Daniel.
Oh, hi. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, all the way from Australia.
Yeah.
And it's like I was telling you, it's my night interview. I'm not used to, and it was so fun to um, go down your rabbit hole more. And this is so I've known of you for probably the last like 4 or 5 years. And I've had this podcast for 5 years, but
Uh-huh.
I'd say, yeah, 4 or 5 years. I've watched you channel and listened to episodes that you were interviewed on, and I always have been fascinated by you. And so what came up was where you came into my life recently was we were in Sedona at a Bashar event, and I was in a house with 8 women, and they all were talking about you, that they had taken your classes, had channeling. And I was like, you know what? I need to ask him to be on the show. So that was my little message. And then, preparing for you and, listening to your journey even more in a deeper way of just listening to you channel and listening to your messages. It's like, oh, I love it. I love
Mm.
every part of your journey. I relate to it in a way with Abraham Hicks and where I started. And, it's like, I think when I look at how you've picked up the breadcrumbs in your life and found out and got to where you are today, is like it just shows you that when you're meant to do something, you're going to
Yeah.
be there, right? Can you go to where, like, you can go maybe as an atheist, and how, like, so,
Yeah.
such a contrast of where you are today and in 2010.
Yeah. Yeah. Being an atheist sucked. I didn't like it. It's just I didn't have anything to believe in. I didn't know what to believe in. I hadn't been introduced to anything other than Catholicism, and that didn't make sense to me anymore, given things I had learned at Boston University that led me to believe, like, hey, there's nothing special about this Bible that we've all given our power over to as Christians. Like, these stories are everywhere. They're all across these different civilizations. So why should ours be special? This story that we have all bought into so much. And so I had nothing to believe in until I stumbled on Deepak Chopra in an interview with Tony Robbins that I was asked to listen to by my current boss I was working for. And when I discovered that particular episode, it was the last of the Personal Power 2, I think, CD set. I almost didn't see it in there. It was one of those, those thick CD cases they used to have for like Pink Floyd's The Wall and stuff, where there were two discs in there.
Yes.
Well, there was three in this one, so I almost didn't flip over that thing and find the third one. But then when I did, it was all, like you said, it was also orchestrated. Of course, I didn't return them to the guy when I had the opportunity to before listening to Deepak, and then found it as I was putting the CD case away and stuff. And yeah, it all changed from there, because I was a total and still am a raw fooder, believing in organic, natural, the body's ability to heal itself. Like, all of that kind of was woven into a certain extent in this interview with Tony Robbins. So I got interested in Deepak, and once I started following him and realizing, like, oh, it's an intelligent universe. It's a universe that responds to us, and the quantum universe and how that works and everything. So that led me to believe there is something here. There's something going on here other than what I believed in, which was pure, like, Darwinian, Freudian kind of philosophy. And then, I found Conversations with God. That was channeled material, which I didn't even think of at first as being channeled until somebody said it to me. And then she said, oh, you should check out Emmanuel's books. So I did. There was only 3 of those. But then on the back of one of those was a blurb, possibly from Deepak, about the Seth books. And so then said, well, what does that mean, the Seth books? And I found them, Seth books with Jane Roberts, the great Jane Roberts, like someone we in the channeling community should all see as the godmother of channeling, and maybe Edgar Casey, the godfather. But yeah, I've so loved those Seth books, and that's what led me to Abraham, someone who's alive still and channeling, because Jane passed in 84. And now this is probably around 2004 when I found Abraham and started following Jerry and Esther around from city to city and cruise ship to cruise ship. And yeah, it led to me eventually being able to channel myself, which I did not expect, which I did not even want or hope for, because it wasn't like something I thought was something that really happened for most people. You know, I thought it was like reserved for certain people or something. So when it started happening to me, I was like, okay, I'm open to this, but I'm not even really sure if I should be doing it. And then I actually got the green light from Abraham to do it. And when I had that, I just ran with it and said, okay, I'll practice until something happens.
But it was at that in North Carolina,
Nashville workshop, yeah.
Nashville, that you
Small, intimate
your
one
hand rose up.
by itself.
Yeah.
And I had been in the hot seat plenty of times talking to Abraham. And so that wasn't so weird, but I was having these dry heaves at the workshop, which was something I still get when I really want to tap into energy, and I'm trying to kind of go beyond where I've been before. My whole body just kind of convulses, and it was happening at the workshop. So this is the second day after lunch, so there was only like 2 hours left in the weekend, and my friend was in the hot seat talking to Abraham, and my hand just went like this, and I was like, this, you're not supposed to raise your hand while the person's still talking, but it was happening, so I just let it happen. And then she got out and it went like this, and then I got called on, of course, and get goosebumps all up and down, and I'm getting them now too. And I got up there and I started asking them what is going on with me, and they said, you're going to do this thing that Esther does, but you're going to have to work through your resistance to it. So I was like, okay, I'll do that now. So it wasn't that long after that I spoke for the first time, and knew that it wasn't me speaking. It was very clear I would not have come up with that phrase.
The what phrase?
It was, we are here for you. And it was definitely not something that was in my head first. It was not, you know, it was just like, wow, okay, now I channeled, you know?
Right. You know, so thinking of, like, I've done all the Seth work, the Abraham work, I've gone down the conversations, all the things that you talk about. That's why I related to because I live in San Diego, and I know you've come down a lot of times from Long Beach, and done a lot of practice when you started practicing your channeling. And so I love that. And, you know, when you are going to these Abraham Hicks things, that going on the cruises, I've gone to her conferences here because she has a house here in San Diego. So she'd have them here a lot. So I would be the same as you. I didn't go to the extreme and go on the cruises at that time. But were you, in your mind, you were so interested in that, but in your mind, were you like, I want to do that? I want to be able to do what she does. You were just so interested in that community and learning what what Abraham says. That wasn't even on your radar.
I was a Jerry. I was like, I have all the questions. I will gladly sit here and ask all the questions to whoever. And my ex-wife now, my wife at the time, I thought maybe she'll channel, because she's not even into this stuff. Like, she's awake, but she couldn't care less about channeling. So I thought maybe it would be her. And what was interesting, I was just talking to somebody about this today, because I dragged her to an Abraham workshop once, and she didn't like, you know, sitting there for all those hours. I remember her like leaned over in her chair and me massaging her back, because I think she was just so bored. And I remember in March of 2010, when I got this big download of energy in the middle of the night, and I was communicating with ETs and stuff, and I wasn't even interested in ETs at the time, so it was very bizarre. I've recently begun like reenacting that in my mind and remembering it because of something Bashar had said about remembering putting you back into the vibration of something. And she had her hand on my chest at one point, and I was like, I must have been speaking out loud. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, more, please, more. And then she asked, like, are you okay? And I said, yes. I said, can you feel it? And she said, no, I just thought you might be having a seizure. And she rolled over and went back to sleep. And that, like, I tried to explain to her the next day what was happening and ETs and all this stuff. And she just wasn't interested, like didn't understand / wasn't interested. So it was 3 months later that we filed for divorce. It was, and I'm not going to say that that caused me to get a divorce,
Right.
because I already didn't want to be in the marriage. And that was part of my breakdown that I was having emotionally. I was having a breakdown in that a day prior to that happening. And I also had a lot of pain in my body that was flaring up. So I was really suicidal and just didn't want to be here anymore. And so part of my story involves hitting rock bottom. And then once I sort of climbed up from there and got the courage up to ask for a divorce and all that stuff, then I fell in love on an Abraham cruise like 2 weeks later, like 2 weeks after she had moved out of the apartment. I met someone, we fell in love, and she and I were practicing over Skype during that time when Abraham gave me the green light. I was like, okay, let's dedicate some time to me practicing channeling. She was all for it because, she loved Abraham. And so she would just sit there and watch me kind of like contort my face and move around like this. And nothing was happening until I said, we are here for you. And before that, I also was saying like phonetic sounds, p, 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 t, 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 ch, 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 like that. And so that was like the first thing I channeled, was like non-words. And then I channeled the words, we are here for you. And then after that, she would ask questions, I would give answers. I didn't understand channeling then like I do now.
Right.
So what happens for a lot of new channelers is they go, well, wait a second, I felt like I was making that up.
Right.
Because as much as the we are here for you felt like it came out of nowhere, all the answers, I felt like I was participating in the answers, because as the channeler, you have to make sense out of the energy that they're sending to you. And that energy, Esther describes it as a block of thought. Daryl Anka has described it as like an energy download. It's just this, something comes, it's not verbal, it's not English, and you have to make it into that. So a lot of people translate that into sound, which you hear me doing when I'm bringing through the sounds at the beginning. That's a translation of that energy into sound. Light language, which I also speak and spoke out of the blue without knowing what it was one day in 2011, like 6 months after I had started channeling. I just started blurting out light language during a massage. And so, these weird things, have happened that I couldn't explain, but yet I would still doubt the channeling. And then I started channeling the tones in 2012, which also was so amazing because they knew how to move my tongue, my lips, and my mouth around to create overtones, which I didn't know how to do. And even though I was doing that and speaking like, it still takes time for us to, I think, go like, am I really doing this? Am I not just deluding myself into thinking like that I'm tapped into some energy? It's true that we're tapped into energy, but what a lot of people don't understand about channeling is, as a channeler, you don't necessarily have access to all information, or even if you do, the person you're channeling for, their higher self, is in charge. So if their higher self doesn't want them to know if Bitcoin is going to go up or down in the next 6 months, you're not going to be able to tell them.
Right.
And you don't necessarily know that as a channeler. So you think it's your fault, and your ego goes, but you should just be able to tell them, but then you step back from it even further and you go, well, wait a minute, timelines, not one future, all that stuff. So it's very complicated and complex channeling, and it's not an exact science, and you can have a good day and an off day, and you can be better when there's a good person like I had a client today, and I thought about, I should write her an email and tell her like, how great it was to channel for her, how I loved that whole experience, because there are some people who just get it. They just understand what it's for, that it's meant to deliver teachings, not necessarily information, and definitely not predictions of the future, the one future, which isn't real. There's so many different futures.
Right.
So it's a joy to do that and to have that kind of back and forth with a client. And then you have others who are just reading from a list. When am I going to lose the weight? When am I going to meet my soulmate? You know, I even had someone ask yesterday. It's funny because I always use this as an example. Someone saying, like, what's the name of my twin flame? I want to know the name, the age, the everything, you know, the location. And it's like, you can't necessarily have that information. And and also the teachings from a channeled entity are always meant to drive the person back to themselves, to where they can go within and access all of that through their own relationship to their guides and their higher self. And so then there's no codependent relationship between channeler and client, where before they do anything, they have to check in with, you know, their person.
You know, going to the tones, because I know that you even went to a singing teacher and learned how to sing. Like, I know your wife sings too, right? She's a singer.
Started, yeah. My wife announced to me like a couple months ago, I'm going to take voice lessons. I want to learn how to sing. And I was like, oh, great. I remember that. And so then just, I think last week it was, she had her big recital with the rest of the students of her teacher, and was up there singing Fly Me to the Moon. And it's just like, it's so cool to watch her do something like that, where she says, I'm going to do it. She does it. And then she loved it. She loved it.
But, you know, so I've been listening to you because I've been preparing for this, and I've been listening to how you get into channeling and the tones, right? So there's not many channelers that do what you do. That's why it's so unique and different. So I'm listening, I'm on my walk, I'm in the car, and it's like, gosh, those tones. I was in here earlier today, laying here doing my meditation, but listening to you, and then the tones. But explain how the tones, like what is that? What are you doing when you're getting into that place? Because that's amazing. It just starts to come out, and it's different. They're always so different.
I could be lying in bed like this and just go, okay, let me tune into what energies are available to me right now, and feel them coming down, and feel them like hitting my body, hitting the palms of my hands. And what will happen is I will usually start channeling tones, even though I'm not going to channel the creators or Thymus or whoever. It'll just be like that. When that energy hits me, I then am the tuning fork and make the sound of that energy. So what's really funny about it is that as a kid, I like to get up in front of people and sing. So I would go to music class in elementary school, where you're singing like Who Took the Cookie from the Cookie Jar, and you're playing like the maracas and tambourine and stuff. I said to my teacher, I want to get up and sing Hurt So Good by John Cougar Mellencamp in front of the class. And she'd be like, okay. And so I did. I remember one time I sang with my friend playing the piano, and we did Bette Midler's The Rose. And I don't know why I chose that song.
I remember doing that in choir. That's funny. And I'm so much older than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's and then talent shows, and I even did like some kind of benefit where I sang a song from Journey. And like so I had it in me to do that. But then it never pursued it. And then I'm 38, and the creators are saying, sing and ring and sing, sing and ring and sing, sing and ring and sing. And I'm like, I think I'm supposed to take voice lessons. And that's when I did, and found Kimberly. And she came in like a year after we had been working together and said, hey, let's do a vocal warm up where we tone. And then I was toning, and synchronistically learning about the power of tone and sound through Wendy Kennedy's Pleiadians. So Wendy is someone who I've heard channel tones. Rob Gothier is another one, Nora Harold. I even was sent a clip by a friend that said, "Oh, Abraham toned at one of the workshops online," and I never heard it because I let the link expire or something. So like there is and Jane Roberts used to speak light language. She just called it something else. She called it like Sumerian or something,
Hmm.
not Sumerian, but something like that. Um, and yeah, it's something that I've been told by other people they see a portal opening over me when I'm making the tones. I have channeled that it's meant to get us all on the same page. So, like, get my vibration to where it needs to be, get the other people's vibration where it needs to be. So there can be a meaningful kind of, we're all on the same wavelength and you're going to actually be able to receive what's being said now.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can see that now after listening to that for a long, I mean, for many of your channelings.
yeah,
I,
it's opening the throat chakra, so it's doing that. It allows you to channel something that doesn't have to make sense, which is good. Because when I'm channeling those messages on YouTube, I know this has to make sense. Like this has to follow a logical progression. The sentences have to be complete sentence because it will be transcribed, and maybe half the people will be reading it as opposed to listening to it that absorb it. So yeah, it's weird that like you have to be as a conscious channel conscious of so many things, but also like I know that it's so much easier to channel tones and light language because I'm free in those moments to just let whatever is going to come through me come through without having to think about any of those things or worry about like, is this derivative of what someone else has channeled? Am I just channeling this because I just heard Paul Selig's guides talk about it, an hour ago? You don't have to do any of that. It's so freeing. And so that experience of letting that just happen through me, then I think allows for me to also be like, okay, now I can speak the words.
right. In like I hear, meditation, you've been meditating forever, like from the beginning. That was a big part of your practice.
Before I even woke up, I was meditating, and I do believe that that's what made me good enough at focusing to be able to get to that place where I could open up to energy coming through me, because it is channeling is really about focusing, but at the same time relaxing, and at the same time raising your vibration, and also allowing, feeling open, those types of things. It's a surrendering and a letting go and letting the process happen. And what Daryl and Bashar say about it is like, so many people do it without realizing they're doing it. Like if you're really good at something or you really enjoy doing something, you can get lost in it.
Mhm.
And then you're not really doing it anymore. You're just like the container through which it's happening.
Right. I see. I've done my automatic writing, and I understand when you say that through the writing part. And then I've had people on that have processes where I get that, where in the middle of the night, or if something comes through me, I go, oh, I can get it. I'm getting it. So I have a taste of that besides the writing. The writing part to me is exactly that, the allowing, the trusting, just like letting it go and not questioning it, not wondering if it's really true or what, just letting
Mhm.
it flow. But when you do your classes, because you teach channeling, which I mean, like everyone needs to go to your website because you have so many things on there that are just amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a going to the mall. You could just be like, I'll do this day and I'll do that this tomorrow. I could do three today. But when you like the part of your, like when people start saying, because we're all channels, we all
Right.
have that gift. What are your, I know you say get into the vibration and all the things, but what are your, like when people are stuck, when they're like, I can't, is it all the doubt, the self-doubt that
It
keeps,
can be the doubt. It can be the fear of, what are other people going to think? Am I going to look crazy? Is something going to take over my body? And what I always tell people about that is, you're never safer than when you're channeling. And the reason for that is, if you're hanging out here, vibrating here all day, they're down here, whatever it is you're afraid of. Some people in the New Age talk about demons. Seth says there's no such thing. I'm a believer that there's no source of evil, therefore there's no beings of pure evil, but we create the idea of that sort of thing and then experience that sort of thing. That who was saying this recently? Was it Seth? I'm re-listening to the Seth material because I found it on Audible. One of the ones I really trust was saying, there are these energies that can get like in our fields and stuff, but the idea that like these beings here vibrating way down here are going to be able to jump up and get you is preposterous enough. You have to go down to their level to be of the vibration. So fear and all those things are what put us in that harm's way. Channeling is about you going up here to do it, because that's where the beings you want to channel are. They're up here. Right. So they'll meet you and be able to have a connection up here. But you going up here doesn't make you more vulnerable to what's down here. It's the opposite. They're not just hanging out, like hiding behind a bush going, oh, she's gonna get in the channeling state and then we'll pounce. I mean, it's just, I understand where it comes from because we have movies like The Exorcist and stuff, but it's not, channeling is not to blame for that. If anything, drinking, drugs, just not processing your emotions, not knowing how, obviously for most people, how to deal with fear and things. But channeling is super safe because the way I teach it is, you raise your vibration, you go up to where their messages are and their consciousness is, that you can then make that kind of direct connection to them, and then also be able to relax enough to let that energy come in and come through you in some way that is meaningful.
Right. So when you started doing this, you didn't believe in ETs. And I was just, I told you, in Sedona watching Bashar, and the whole thing was, ET, the contact was his main focus that weekend, was within the next 5 years. But so that was fresh in my mind. And then I'm listening to you talk and you don't believe in that. And then all of a sudden you're channeling the ETs, like they come through you. My question is, you have like the Arcturians, Saint Germain, the Ascended Masters in the 12th dimension, the 90. You have all these, I mean, I have a list, the creators that came through you that you named. But how do you dissect, or how do you distinguish? Oh, these are ETs, and this is the Saint Germain, and now I'm in the 12th dimension with the Ascended Masters, and now the 90 with the Arcturians.
Well, first of all, I believed about ETs what Abraham said about them, which was that they exist, they're out there, but they're kind of like blipping in and out of your reality by accident or sometimes on purpose, but they're not really sharing in your reality, and there's no down spacecrafts anywhere. And there's a lot of theories as to why Abraham, is like that about ETs, and Esther, perhaps, I won't repeat things that I've heard because I have no idea if it's true or not, but there's theories about that. But that was my stance on ETs, was like, well, if we're source energy beings, and that means like we are, we're everything. Like, what do we need them for? What would their relevance be to our lives here on Earth? And so I think I was kind of being shown that in that moment, like, here we are relevant. This is something you're supposed to look into. And then I started looking into it. Oddly enough, I had a private session with Daryl and Bashar in 2005, not knowing Bashar was an alien. But I heard there was a guy in the valley doing private channeling readings, and I went there and I had my session. And then I went down the Abraham path instead, and then came back around to Daryl and Bashar in 2010 when that happened. And Wendy Kennedy and Nora Harold are two other channelers who were working in Southern California at the time. Neither one of them lived there anymore. So I could go to all their events, and I met them. I became friends with both of them. Like they realized, oh, he's a colleague, and they were very like the kindest, most like take you under their wing people. And they were channeling fairies and ETs and their higher selves and their oversouls and Yeshua. And I was like, I'm channeling the creators, and that was it. But then I kind of was like curious about fairies, and then they became, Ophelia the fairy became the next being I channeled, and then open to like who else might come through. And then the Hathors came through. And then at a Nora Harold workshop when Archangel Michael came through me the first time. And so then my second wife, I'm on number 3 now. My second wife said one day, what about Archangel Gabriel? Can you channel them? And I was like, okay, let me see. And so that there are all these different stories as to how they came through. But obviously there are some that are wanting to come through me right now, or I need them to come through, or there's something we need to do together, because like Saint Germain just starts popping up all the time. And so I'm bringing Saint Germain through for the daily messages. And they all like, there's kind of like categories, like the feminine ones all kind of sound and feel the same to me. And like Archangel Michael, Buddha, Yeshua, they're all very similar. And like Thymus, Saint Germain, Melchizedek are all very similar. Hathors, creators, Arcturians, Pleiadians all feel kind of similar to me. And then I've channeled some physical ETs as well, like the Zetas. Well, they're not physical anymore, but when they were around, I would channel them, and I still channel them today. But they're all the ones who were responsible for those abductions and visitations that people woke up in the middle of the night and were like, hey, what the hell's going on? They're all dead now. And the hybrids that are coming, or that are already in the skies, really are the end result of all that. Did that answer your question?
I think so. But when you're saying the Zetas and all these names, like if you were, did you know that before all those Archangel Michael, the Thymus, were you educated with all of those people, all of those figures, Buddha? So you knew that that was them, or they're going, hi, Daniel, it's Saint Germain coming through. It's the Zetas. Like, how would you know that?
So many different stories behind each one, but I learned about the Zetas through Nora, Wendy, Daryl, Lisa Royal Holt, and probably others too. That they're the gray ones. We call them the Zetas. They're not even really from Zeta Reticuli, so that's another thing. Is that's a misnomer, but they started coming through me one day when I set out to channel Pleiadians, and instead of getting Pleiadians, I got the Zetas, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to rewatch Close Encounters of the Third Kind because I haven't seen that since I was a kid. And then I watched that movie, and the little blonde boy in it, it's like the first one we see get abducted. What's weird about that is, for me, is that I was blonde when I was little, and he had a Boston University t-shirt on, which made no sense given the placement of where they were in the movie. And that's where I went to school. And I just was like, all right. So I started channeling the Zetas more. It's a beautiful movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Spielberg so long, right?
Nailed it with that, and nailed it with E.T. And like, that's really all we need. We only need those 2 movies. We don't need any of the other ones about each. Oh, there was a great one called Arrival a few years ago with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. That one was super cool, and that was about aquatic ETs, but it didn't get a lot of fanfare. So anyway, that's how the Zetas came about. It's like totally unintentionally. But yeah, I did learn about some of them beforehand. I had heard of the founders because of Lisa Royal Holt, but didn't have any interest in channeling them. And then they came through me one day. And the Hathors, I had heard of them, but I wasn't interested in them or wanting to channel them, but they just came through. The Arcturians, what's weird about that is that like I didn't know anybody who channeled Arcturians. And I don't even to this day know what attracted me to channel them. I kind of just always thought I should channel the Arcturian someday. And then like a year later I did. And that was when I met my current wife around that time.
So your wife now isn't the one you met on the Abraham Hicks
So
boat?
she and my wife and I now met through Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I
Okay.
know, it's very strange. But no, I didn't get married to the woman I met on the Abraham cruise. She and I guess we were supposed to come together for that time, and she helped me, and then we obviously just weren't compatible and went our separate ways. But it's yeah, it all is very, like, looking back at it now 14 years later, it's like this was all orchestrated. This wasn't me. I don't get any credit for any of this. Like, all I had to do was say yes, like Jim Carrey in that movie, which is a totally underrated Jim Carrey movie called Yes Man. There, like, the message was just keep saying yes.
Yes.
It's like, and that's one of the words I channel a lot in the beginning part is yes, yes, yes. And so that's all I had to do. And I chose, I know I chose all of this. I'm not, like, I'm not a special soul, or anything like that. I just, for whatever reason, before I was born, said, yeah, I'll take that one,
Right. But you are part of, but when you channel, when people, like you're part of that, you're part of your soul is still with the creators. I mean, are you part
Yeah,
of the Arcturians? Is that your soul in all of those?
I think so. Yeah. I definitely believe in that whole, we are really our oversouls, and our oversouls are just splattered all across the universe in these different forms. And it makes it easier probably for me to channel the ones that are part of my same oversoul that I'm a part of.
So if I started channeling, I mean, like you do, I would be channeling who my oversoul is part of.
You might start channeling your higher self, and then from there reach out into these other realms and dimensions and such. And yeah, I'm sure you would have some kind of relationship, pre-existing relationship, with whoever you're going to channel. Like when Nora said to me after a workshop, she said Archangel Michael came through to answer your question in the workshop. She said that never happens. Like, Archangel Michael never comes through me in one of these. She said you probably have a relationship with him. And I thought, okay. And I didn't give it a second thought till I was channeling Archangel Michael like a year later at one of her other workshops, because she just prompted anyone in the audience who wanted to channel Archangel Michael to do so. And it was totally weird. The whole thing was because I felt the presence first, and then she asked the question. I was like, that's so weird she's asking that question, because she would never normally do that. And then I raised my hand and I channeled them. I say them for the first time.
Wow. So when you look at time and when we talk about our oversoul and we're splattered and like you said, so when you look at time, it's all happening now, and I understand
Right.
that. I'm getting better about understanding that.
Mhm.
You're part of this little speckle of soul of you and Daniel is happening in this human body right now. Will you explain to me, like, the soul like you had this like desire to come in here, and like, are you part of these? I know you are, but I want you to answer the ascension into this new earth, this fifth dimension that we're all moving toward, this expansion, this movement that we're living in right now in 2024.
Yeah, well, I must be, because I've written so many books about it now, published so
Right.
many books about ascension that, and that was never a plan either. That just was like, oh, what do I think would be a good title for my channel material that would get people's attention? And so I don't, you know, I don't know when it's going to happen. You listen to different people, you hear different things. I do think we have control over when we experience it, though, because of alternate timelines. And, certainly you could look at what's going on in the world today from every possible angle. And if you look at it through the lens of source, then you're not only doing something that's good for everyone, but you're doing something that's good for yourself that will then help you to move onto a timeline that is more reflective of that kind of energy that you're putting out. So to answer your question, I guess I signed up to do this because like it doesn't even make sense, a lot of it, because like until I was 37, which is when the beginning of 2010, I was 37. I had never really had a mystical new age experience other than one time I remember hearing a little voice in my head when I woke up. One morning I heard this voice and it said, "You can do it, Dan." And I didn't even know what they were referring to. But other than that, I had no mystical, like I didn't feel like I was going to be someone who tapped into anything. And then it all started happening. So it's weird given my background that I would be in any position to like be a leader in this, but it's what I'm doing, I guess.
You guess. I guess.
Well, I like it. I do like it though. I mean, I remember before I started channeling, and I had these friends that I met in Long Beach, and they weren't into any of this stuff before they met me, and I started explaining some things to them. And then my friend would ask me a question. He owned a record store, and I would start talking, and he commented one night, he's like, "Look how like you light up when you talk about this stuff. Look at the way you know," and he wasn't that kind of guy to say that kind of thing either. And so it makes perfect sense that this is like me following my bliss, and I love talking about channeling, and I'm so excited to get together with like other channelers at the channel panel and just like talk shop with them. It's just it's really fascinating. ET contact is really fascinating too, and I think it just means like we're moving outside our little bubble, our little egoic bubble, and expanding out to include more experiences, more connections, more possibilities, and all kinds of things by doing that. And because otherwise the life on Earth, like I honestly feel like I've done it all.
Mm.
Like anything you could check off the list of like things you might want to do as a human, I feel like I've done it now. Like I'm ready for something more.
Like what? What would be more?
More would be traveling to, like meeting an ET in the flesh, and traveling on their ship and going to another planet, traveling through a wormhole, experiencing a different kind of concert where there's not just like sound and color, but like feeling, and like all these different things you hear about, where you hear near-death experiencers kind of explaining these like spheres that give off sound, and like being able to think something and then experience it right away, or go there right away, like that kind of thing is, I think, what we see in our movies and we hear about, but most of us haven't had that experience really physically yet.
Right. You have all these manifesting things on your like videos, courses on your website, and it's like find your dream home, your career, all these amazing, like you really teach how to manifest with like tones and crystal grids and all to explain why that is. It because people get on a channel with you on a channeling session and they're like, I want to know my career, I want to know if I have a dream house.
Everybody wants that stuff, and a lot of people, of course, feel blocked in some way. They feel like they've tried this, they've tried that, it didn't work out. And so using things like tones and light language and the violet flame and other things, they're just things people haven't tried yet. Or meditation, something that could maybe unlock something inside of them that they heretofore haven't even acknowledged as present. Maybe a lot of people have just thought like, well, I just got to think about it over and over again, or put it on a vision board, or keep talking about it, and that'll make it happen. But there's a lot more at work that we don't know about until you allow something that goes beyond the mind to sort of help you. So a lot of the stuff that I put out there is like going beyond the mind and what we would think of if we just watched The Secret and just said, okay, I'm going to go out there and manifest now.
Right. Have you learned all that from channeling?
Yeah, I've learned so much. I've learned so much more than I ever learned in all my years of school since, and it's crazy to think of like how much more education is available to us today than has ever been available to us before, and how much we can really tap into. It's amazing. So yeah, I've learned from my own channeling and other people's channeling, and accidentally, and through experience too. I've had the experience of doing all these things, and it helps too to have also had my failures in life. The things that didn't work out for me the way that I wanted them to, and the health issues and all that stuff, to be able to relate to other people and have compassion for other people with what they're going through, and not just be like, oh, it's easy, just do this and you'll be fine. But to really understand, like, yeah, I was there, I was suicidal, and I had this bad experience and this relationship breakup and all that stuff.
Right. Do you mind channeling at the end here?
No, I don't mind. Let me turn on my musicians thing. Okay, this will make the tones come through.
Thank you.
And you just want like a general message from them, or did you want to ask questions? Or
Can you do a message and I'll ask a couple questions?
yeah,
I won't ask too many.
okay, we'll see who comes through. I won't plan it.
Okay. Oh, good. This will be so fun.
Yes, yes, yes. We are here for you. We are the creators. We are a 12th dimensional collective of non-physical beings, and we are here to help. We are part of your non-physical crew. We are helping you by supplying you with the non-physical energies that you need in order to power yourselves and your reality there on earth. And it isn't just one reality, there are many realities, but you only experience one of them at a time. We are very happy to be here in the 12th dimension and to hold the frequency that we hold. And we invite you all to be happy with yourselves, with your life experiences, and with your place in the universe, because in that state of accepting where you are and who you are and the vibration you are currently vibrating at, you are able then to open up to more of what we are and what we offer from the 12th dimension, as we are offering you downloads, energies, upgrades, activations, attunements, even information that you might find useful in your day-to-day lives. We can be very practical in our offerings. We are not just going to tell you to sit and meditate for 16 hours a day under the Bodhi tree while fasting and oming and chanting. We are going to help you to infuse more of that non-physical energy into your lives and into the lives of those around you, so that you can create more of a heaven on earth type of experience, because we know that's what you want and that's what we want for you. Now, we are happy to take your questions.
When you say you're in the 12th dimension, when we are on Earth in this human body, and people keep mentioning the 5D, moving into getting out of the 3D, moving in through the 4th to the 5th, what does that process look like to you from that perspective?
It looks like all of you expanding and vibrating at a faster frequency, so that you can allow more light into your bodies, and you can be comprised of more of the light and the love that you truly are. And as you allow that light and love in, and you allow yourselves to operate from that higher frequency, you experience yourselves, others, and your world differently. It is about changing the way you experience reality, and not going to a different reality where everything already is better, already has been changed for the better for you. But by changing yourselves, you are changing the way that you experience your reality in the moment, and you are able then to have different experiences, new experiences that you will enjoy.
In our DNA and our light codes in our body, it's all upgrading.
Yes.
Is that just a natural progression in this life that we're living in this time on this planet?
Yes, first you expand your consciousness. So the non-physical comes first, then the physical comes. So the new strands of DNA, the upgrades to the DNA that you already have, the lighter body experiences, even the changes to the mind and the emotional body comes because you have expanded your consciousness, because you have been able to go beyond where you have been before in terms of your concept of self and your way of being in the world. And as you shift those things, you start to see yourself in everything and everything in you, and knowing that you are in this very interactive experience with your universe, it then allows you to take on a different perspective on things and not to see anything as separate from you or far out of reach. And in doing so, you begin to take on more of the perspective of source energy, which of course you are, We all are, but when you don't know it and then you awaken to it, there is a time period of adjustment to knowing that theoretically, to having the experience of it viscerally and physically so that you can then live as though you are gods on earth.
Since there is no time, we are living in that way now.
Yes, and at times you do access those frequencies. You do access the fifth dimensional consciousness and you operate from it from time to time. But it is true that the future you does exist now, and you are moving through various realities to get to that one where the future you that has just crossed over the fifth dimensional threshold is there and is already having that party.
With ETs now becoming a very big part of our consciousness, where do you see ETs? Are they part of what dimension?
All of them. Every dimension, because all it means is that they don't exist on your earth. That's all extraterrestrial really means. So in non-physical dimensions, there's ET consciousness. And in physical dimensions, in other star systems, there are ETs in physical form. And you are starting to understand who some of them are, where they are, what they look like, what their agendas are. And that will all continue to grow as you continue to expand out from your little corner of the galaxy.
And we were ETs. Part of our soul is an ET. Is that
Yes. Yes. You are more ET than you are human, just like you are more non physical than you are physical. And you've had or are having, to put it in simultaneous time terms, you are having all of these other ET experiences right now, and many more than you're having on Earth in your past life, so to speak, in the 1800s and 1600s and so on.
I heard Daniel channel about this. We've all been everything. We've been animals. We've been our consciousness has to experience all living beings. Is that true?
And you probably don't consider rocks and minerals to be living beings, but they are. But also, you have to go even beyond that and consider that you've been a moon, a star, a planet, a comet, an asteroid, all of these things.
And when do we decide that we're not going to come back as a human?
Whenever you want to, whenever you feel like you've had enough of that experience. There is no mandate that says you have to keep coming back. That's one of the misconceptions that people carry around with them, is that you're trapped there or you're doomed to repeat what you've not gotten right yet. You can decide that's enough of that. I'm ready to move on. And of course, many people do feel that way about their lives right now, that they don't want to come back. And usually, if you feel that way, it means that there is still something there for you to let go of, to release resistance to.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm done with my questions. I appreciate it.
Yes, very good. We are the creators, and we love you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you. It energizes you, right?
Yes, I feel lighter. I feel like there's more of me present now. Like I've just received a little upgrade to myself, and yeah, it makes me less tired than when I start the day, and especially when like I'm doing one of those where I know that a lot of people are going to receive what it is that's coming through me. I don't know if it's because they know in advance all the people who will receive it, or because I feel on some unconscious level the pull of all of those people pulling that through me.
Mhm.
But there's definitely a difference in channeling for one person than channeling for 50 or 5,000.
Right. Oh gosh, that was so cool. Thank you for doing that. So let's talk about what you're doing now. So books, you're having these events coming up, you're in Sedona. I've had Sarah Landon on here, I've had Wendy Kennedy and Paul Selig, and I love all the me and
Yeah.
Star.
Oh,
So anyway, tell us about everything that's coming up with for you.
sure. And by the way, when I was toning, it occurred to me Paul Selig also tones. He'll be in the middle of one of his book dictations, and all of a sudden Melchizedek will be like, okay, this sound coming through is for this, and he'll just
Yeah.
start belting out the tone. This is the latest book that I've self-published. It is from Archangel Michael, so it's all Archangel Michael channelings. It's kind of getting a glare there. It's called Channeling Archangel Michael, the Seven Signs of Humanity's Ascension. And it's like a coffee table book. So you can actually get the hardcover if you want to, and you flip it over to any 2 pages, and you see like there's one transmission per page. So that was me sitting to channel Archangel Michael one time on each page, and it's broken down into 7 chapters, which are the 7 signs. And so that's available on all the Amazons and all the formats. And the Sedona event, yeah, that's going to be huge. There will be 700 seats available. I don't know how many are still available for the in person, and then people can attend online, and people can come to my individual workshop where I'll be teaching channeling for a room full of, again, 100 seats. I don't know how many will be full, but at least 40 are full so far. And that's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And you can go to I think it's thechannelpanel.org or .com or something. But if you just type in Google Channel Panel Sedona, it'll show up. And Daryl Anka will be there, and Lisa Royal Holt and Wendy Kennedy. And so it's very exciting. I've never been a part of anything that big before.
And then the Mike Dooley had as a
Yeah.
compilation book.
We did that, me and Sarah and Matt Kahn and Daryl Anka and Lisa Royal Holt and Mike and Sarah Kelly. We all collaborated on this like 6-week event that Mike put together with his people, Mike Dooley. And he thought it was all so good. He's like, we should transcribe it and put it into a book form, and it's called The Great Awakening. So it's 200 and something pages filled with everything that was channeled in that event. And there's a lot of information on ascension in that as well. And that's doing really well on Amazon.
Oh, I bet. I love all those, everybody in there. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
good
thank
group.
you, Daniel. Thank you for being here. And
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
it's like, it's when I think of you and what you've taught me, and I get so excited to like continue and to be, I'm thinking that your channeling class is
Yeah.
starting next week. This
On the
will
15th.
this
Yeah.
will be on YouTube now, but on the podcast it won't be yet because it's starting on the 15th.
Yeah.
Um, that class sounds so fascinating to me, and that's your
It's
next
so
one.
good. I love it so much. It's called the Mega Course, and it's at danielscranton.com/mega if people want to sign up for it. And they can do payment plans with me too. They don't have to cough it all up at once. But
But it's
it
like $400.
488, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
And it's
like everything
18
on,
hours.
huh?
It's 18 hours of time, so
Yeah.
it's like 20 something dollars per hour, right? Yeah, and we meet for 2 hours once a month on Zoom, and then the time in between each Zoom meeting, people are meant to like grow and practice and use what they're learning, and so they're ready to go to the next step and the next step, and we end on the 9th class on channeling ETs. So
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's calling me.
oh, cool. That would be
My
fun.
birthday's on the 14th. I was like, well, that could be
Oh
my
my
birthday.
God, that's so cool.
I could start my new channeling class the next day.
Well, happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, thank you. So
You're
appreciate your
welcome.
time. And thank
Terrific.
you for everything. Thank you for expanding my consciousness.
So happy to do it.
Thank you.